Hi folks, Dawn Cook, DaveandDawnCook.com. I decided to do a video today in regards to a great book I'm reading. It's one that's been recommended by Jim Rohn, one of my favorite mentors. The book is called The Richest Man in Babylon, and it's written by George Clason. It was written back in 1926. It's the story of the city of Babylon back in ancient times. I believe we're talking maybe 5,000 years ago. And I think maybe that city is still on record the wealthiest city ever since that period of time. And the story talks about how the richest man in Babylon became the richest man in Babylon. And it's by a set of fairly easy steps that are just as usable today as they were back in the time of Babylon. And the first rule to create your wealth is to, from your earnings, take 1/10 of those earnings and set it aside and invest. Maybe once it builds up to a little bit there, then you find an investment for those earnings. So therefore, your money can create more money. So of course then, if you're setting aside 10% of each pay, you need to learn to live on 90% of your earnings. And according to George Clason, once you've devised a plan to do that and live by it, you'll discover that 90% isn't much different than the 100% that you were previously spending on your living expenses. So again, you take 10% of your earnings, set that aside because you're going to invest it so those earnings can make you more earnings, and you learn to live on the 90% of your earnings so that the 10% that you set aside can remain set aside. You never touch that 10% once you've made the investment and the endeavor to have those earnings make you more earnings and in effect create your wealth. So again, you set aside 10% of your earnings, you learn to live on 90%, and you make the wise decision to find someone that knows what they're doing in regards to different types of investments that you may want to make. In the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, the gentleman that was learning how to follow this plan, the first thing he did was he gave his money to his friend the bricklayer, who was going to buy some jewelry that they were jewels that they were then going to sell to the residents of Babylon and make all this money. The problem was that the bricklayer knew nothing about jewels and therefore bought what turned out to be colored glass. So therefore, the gentleman, I'm forgetting his name, but the gentleman and the bricklayer in effect then lost all their money. So you need to invest your money with someone, or you yourself need to learn what to be an expert in that area so that your invested earnings can actually make you more money rather than losing it all based on a poor decision. So these are the basic rules to get started to create your wealth, like the richest man in Babylon did. You set aside 10% of your earnings, you learn to live on 90%, and you make a proper investment of those dollars by learning or using someone who is an expert in the area where you want to make your investment. So therefore, those earnings you set aside can, rather than disappear, they can grow and build and begin your assets, your growth of assets that will create your wealth. So I will discuss maybe this book a little bit more. That was just a brief overview. There's there's actually quite a bit more to it, but it is an excellent book. It's probably only 150 pages. It's an excellent read, and it's a whole different method or ways to turn your earnings, no matter how much they are, into a fortune. And unfortunately, there's so many people in our world or our country that don't know these simple rules. I mean, we all, and this was me before too, you know, you spend it all rather than actually setting some aside and creating some assets so that you can actually turn things around and actually create your wealth. So I recommend this book, again, The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. Big recommendation by Jim Rohn, and anything Jim Rohn says is gold. So hope you read the book and enjoy it, and thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.